thing that I underestimated in terms of how much work it is, but how valuable it is once you have this skill, is being able to really properly upward manage your internal stakeholders and your external stakeholders. But I think that there's some nuance and kind of special behavior that you need to acquire and recognize when you're working on maybe a high profile project and you have a lot of accountability in that space.
I think a common misconception about project managers is that they are administrative assistants that schedule meetings. Project managers really are process experts that can help a team work through the work that needs to be done to help meet their business objectives, and do it in a way that's efficient, that doesn't require a lot of rework. A project manager has a really good ability to facilitate a team to gain clarity. Like, one of the things that I notice is that, people love to go from idea to execution and skip that planning phase, but a project manager can really help a team step back, think about why they're doing a project, what's the purpose of the project, what outcomes are we really expecting? Because truth be told, I've walked into so many projects in which you think everyone's on the same page, but they really are not. And so even just the simple act of doing that makes a world of difference. And then helping that team get clarity around the path forward to get all that work done that needs to happen is so much easier. If you're adding more value to a team than just scheduling meetings, it becomes clear that you have skills to offer to facilitate a team to meet their goals. But there are also some tools that really help with that as well. So I've oftentimes leaned on things like a project charter or, documentation assets, which I know sounds so boring and dry and sort of like, great, you just document stuff. But those documents really support the strategic work that you're trying to do with a team and gain clarity, and then help to communicate as you go forward all the things that you're trying to do. And honestly, they help a team understand what they're working on, so that the communication with others, like all of the varied stakeholders that you have to keep informed or make sure you're managing well, so that something doesn't blow up or everybody appropriate is consulted when you're doing certain things. It really helps to communicate well to others.
I think one of the most impactful projects, or we really saw the benefit of planning up front, but also being realistic and also having punchy timelines kind of all in one, was when I worked with Bonnie and Course Kitchen on kind of implementing and building a new product that the company that I work for, kind of, in short, we were taking our content and our concept from one platform into another. So it sounds really easy just to transfer everything over, but it really took the thought process behind how we want to implement this new product, how we need to be able to express our content in the best way in this new platform. So there were so many dimensions to the project plan, and there were so many checkpoints that had to be built in so that we could be smart in a bunch of different ways. And I think what I found was the most successful components was a really transparent collaboration with everyone you're working with, whether it is internal or external, and you're working with vendors and partners, because they also have expertise in the area that you might not have, but also they are providing their best resources and their best approach as well. So it's kind of about blending everyone's ways of working together. So transparent communication, and then I guess that flows through to building a project plan in a collaborative way, and making sure that those communication tools are really strong. So we used Trello, and that worked amazing for us. We were kind of able to actually build all of our communication into Trello, which I think that even enhanced my expectation of the tool. So not only was it kind of managing a timeline, but all the components and assets and resources and who was working on what, and keeping other teams up to date on where we were for status. So that was a really big win for us. We actually use a different internal project management tool at my company, and I found that with the complexity of the project we were working on, it almost helped to use a really straightforward, simple tool that just made sense, as opposed to adding complexity and admin to a lot of the work. So really leaving the hard work up to the individuals that were contributing so much, as opposed to a lot of the actual management of any kind of live project plan, but really just working towards something in a simple and consistent way. assume anything. So I think it's always good to have our principles and our guidelines around how we want to work together, how long things take to get done, kind of the bare minimum. But I think specifically in the learning space, because things are so nuanced based on your audience, based on the tools, based on how you really develop the content, it actually matters how you're going to approach something, because ultimately we need to be seeing it from the end user's perspective. So I think that's always in the back of our minds, and it's less about just getting things done and moving through all the steps, but it's also about taking those checkpoints in between to kind of zoom out from your project management space and put your end user hat on and say, is this actually still making sense? Are we working towards the goal, the outcome that we ultimately wanted? And I think having a really diverse team in terms of skill set and also background, working and adding their influence and insight into that piece is just as important as a great project plan, but just really being collaborative about that and all kind of incorporating all those insights will make it all the more impressive and successful at the end.
A project manager is a strategic asset to the people who are trying to deliver this work. So, I think a lot of people think about project managers as overhead or extra bureaucracy, but really project managers are really in support of the work that's getting done and in support of the person who owns the initiative and whose job it is to deliver on this. I think don't be afraid to involve that project manager in, share a brain with that person, share all of the challenges, risks, issues, concerns, and bring that person along for the ride, because they really will be able to be a good sounding board. They'll be able to help you think about the right process by which that you can deliver this work. They'll help you to communicate with sponsors when something goes well and when something goes wrong. So I guess I see it as I would love for everyone to kind of go into a relationship or into a project with a project manager as understanding that person is your partner and not just a box to check or bureaucracy or documentation to complete. It's really that person has been assigned to that project to help you get it done, so.
New coming in, there are different motivations for everyone. We have one of our key internal folks is really based in innovation, product psychology. That motivation is different than someone with an operations background who's hoping we do this at the least amount of cost as fast as possible. So being able to manage those different personalities and motivations will only benefit you, and being able to kind of bring those folks together, whether they're more senior or more junior, would be kind of where I'd maybe focus if I was starting new.
Some of the more important aspects of project management that anyone can incorporate, and I have actually done a lot of training in my career of others that are not project managers in the official sense, but it is such a skill set that can be utilized across the board by anybody. I think knowing your audience and communicating with an audience with what they need to understand or hear, or kind of meeting people where they are is really important. I think that's something everyone can do. I think not rushing from idea to execution and maybe taking a moment to plan, to really think about the path forward and why you're doing certain things, getting clarity on business goals. Anyone can do that. And sometimes I like to say it's like saying things out loud. If you just state it with your teams and understand what it is you're trying to achieve, you can understand quickly if you're all in agreement or not. I think general basic skills that go a long way include timeline development, right? Really having some of the nuts and bolts components now of project management beyond just sort of defining the team are understanding how to build a timeline. Anyone can do that. And, and I think part of the beauty in that is that you can leverage your team to understand all the different nuances and dependencies and stuff. It doesn't have to be in fancy software. It doesn't have to be crazy complicated, but if you just sort of really think about all the things that are needed and setting realistic timelines, that's a great skill and it's applicable to everything. And then I think the other one is it sort of hits with communication that I started with, but managing stakeholders. There will, no matter what you do, it could be a tiny little task or something much, much larger, but there are always people who have feelings and thoughts about that, and people that you may need to convince, or people that you may need to consult with, or people you may need to keep informed. And just always reminding yourself that that's something you should be doing. Your project will go better for it in the end, even if it feels really good to just work in a silo for a while and then pop out with the product at the end. Keeping people informed along the way is absolutely critical.